As we do, we'll review the champions on defense. Draymond Jones, John Cooper, and Jay Sean Cornell, Tuff Borland, and Damon Arnett. The player of the game was Brendan White, who ended up with 10 tackles, 3 assists, 2 tackles for loss. On offense, you have J.K. Dobbins, ended up with 185 yards, 3 touchdowns. Luke Farrell played very well, arguably his best game. Wide receiver, you had Johnny Dixon with 96 yards receiving and a touchdown. Paris Campbell. And then offensive line, we gave it to all 5. They were actually player of the game. We gave it to the offensive line with Mike Weber getting an honorable mention. If he didn't lay it on the ground, he played really hard. And then special teams was very solid Saturday. We had 2 kickoff returns against us for 25 total yards. And Spielman was a heck of a returner. He had 1 return for -2 yards, and we had a blocked punt. That was obviously a big part of the game. So I'm answering any questions. Obviously a big one this week against Michigan State. Very strong rivalry that we have a lot of respect for that team, and they're playing as good a defense as there is in the country. So I'll answer any questions for you.
Front row middle, Dave.
Urban, what are you seeing from your linebackers this year? Not just this past game, but what are you seeing from your linebackers?
I see improvement. I see a group that was really all for it. 3 new starters. You know, Tuff was a returning guy, but they had Barron playing, and you had Malik, full-time starter, and Pete Werner, first-time starter. So I see improvement, but we still have far too many missed tackles. We had 6 or 7 tackles for losses that we missed. So that's what I see.
And when Dwayne Haskins takes off and scrambles, it seems like sometimes he's sliding too early. What do you see from him? I know it's not his forte, but when he scrambles, what are you seeing from him, and what are you teaching him?
Yeah, you like to see him, you'd like to see him get all he can and then get down. I know the one you're talking about. It wasn't the most graceful, so. But you're asking what we want, get as much as you can get down.
Second row right, Rob.
Urban, along those lines, we all kind of remember Dwayne against Michigan, that run he had. Were we just fooled there, or has he been discouraged from running? Has he been coached to go down? Which one is it, I guess?
No, I think, not that I'm aware of. I mean, we've always wanted our quarterbacks. That's a big part of the game. He made a nice play on a scramble to the right and completed the pass, keeping his eyes downfield to Luke. But no, you always want to get all you can and then get down.
You thought he'd be more of a runner a little bit, or what's your analysis of that?
I know he's not obviously not a JT, but I'd have to go back. You're catching me off guard a little bit. Those are always those yards that you see that you have to get them somewhere else if we're not getting them from the quarterback.
And then on the other side of the ball, I don't think we've heard from you. In your words, how much has losing Nick Bosa affected this defense? I mean, not just him, but how he affects things. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Whenever arguably, well, not arguably, one of the probably top 5 players in America is not playing. He's an inspiration. Was a captain. Was this? Was that? And but that happened quite a while ago. So what's the impact? Obviously big, but you got to move on.
Front row left, Doug.
You talked a lot about last week, you guys, during the bye week, trying to figure out what to do, especially with the red zone, and you worked on that so much. When you come up with something like that jumbo package, you had Wyatt at tight end, can you just take us through a little bit? I mean, are you watching loads of film? Are you looking at things you've tried at Florida? Are you looking at other teams? Is there almost not a fight, but like a healthy debate? Someone thinks this, someone thinks that. What's it really like to come up with that?
That's exactly what goes on. First of all, it's our offense, and so we'll go back in time and say, what did we have? What did we do when we didn't have, the JT, the Tebow, even Alex was a runner enough. The guys that weren't big runners were Chris Leak, Cardell Jones at times, but Cardell Jones was slamming it in there. And then when teams are loading the box on you, they're playing, especially last week, and the defense a lot of teams are playing down there is called Bear Zero, which is there's 2 extra hats wherever you go, and so you have to throw it. And we want to run the ball. So it's all the above what you just said. Go back and see what you've done. You have Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, others from other styles of offenses that we have that conversation. We go back and see the best red zone offenses in the country. You're talking about probably 40 hours of time into that. And it was great to see, to see J.K. dive in the end zone twice and and then Paris on the little push pass to him. We were 3 of 4, and the one was an ill-advised throw, an interception.
And we know, and you were asked about leadership, I think, a couple weeks ago with this team. We know the guys last year, JT and all those other seniors. Right now, maybe after a bad play, after a turnover, or you're losing at halftime in the game or whatever, who are the guys in the game, on the sideline? Do you see players walking around telling guys to keep their heads up, or are you maybe missing some of that a little bit?
I think it's growing as a team. You mentioned some outstanding leaders from a year ago. On offense, you can see those receivers picking up the slack, and you can see Isaiah Prince as a vocal leader, Michael Jordan his own degree, and Dwayne's trying to get there. You know, and Dwayne, that's something that he's improved greatly and still has ways to go. On defense, you know, right now, it's the confidence factor. You know, you had 3 starters out of the secondary again Saturday, and we're hoping, I think we're going to be finally, we're going to have them all healthy. But it's been like that. It's been a deck of cards shuffling in and out of the back end of our defense. So I think we got them all healthy. It's hard to lead when guys are out of the game, and you just don't have that consistency.
And right next door to Doug, Steven.
Haskins, in comparison now, he's been all season. That wasn't one of his best showings. Do you feel like the emphasis on the running game played a role into that?
We talked about that. I mean, that's, you get what you emphasize, and you know, we spent a lot of time on some other facets of our offense. But you know, yes, I would agree with that.
And also, Brendan White, you talked about him as well. He had a great game. Have you thought about starting him and Fuller together on Saturday?
Yeah, I know those decisions are being made in the next couple of days.
Back row middle, Patrick.
Following up with Brendan, you guys obviously have kind of been in flux at that position throughout the year. I know you said after the game that he needed to prove to the coaches and whatnot, but what did you see from him that made him the next guy in? And do you think that this is something he can consistently do, or is that just a one game he's excited to be in type of thing?
We're going to find out. He's certainly going to play. He's earned that right. He's practiced. You know, that was coming. You know, that was his practices have been very good the last couple weeks, and Coach Grinch made that clear in front of the team after the game. But he's earned that right to be on the field.
Given, you know, some other question marks, and you talked about guys that are close and whatnot, does seeing a performance like that coming off the bench make you think any more about some of those other guys that you've mentioned being close, getting them in the game more?
It certainly has, and we haven't had those opportunities like we've had in the past to get guys in the game. And but the best opportunity you get is in practice to come show yourself and get going. You can see on special teams, Josh Proctor made a heck of a play for us on the opening kickoff, I believe, or the second kickoff. And some other guys are really coming on, Taraja Mitchell, and some of these other guys are doing very good for us in special teams. That's practice, special teams, opportunity to play on defense.
Fifth row left, Andrew.
Do you feel the running game now is in a place where you can replicate the success you had against Nebraska the rest of the season?
That's what we're working on right now. Obviously, you're facing the #1 rush defense in the country coming up this week, so that's going to be but our offensive line played very well on their backs. That was their best pad level game as far as dropping their pads and getting through those holes.
Third row left, Dan.
Urban, Mike Weber and Isaiah Prince posted after the game that you guys really didn't call any RPOs on Saturday, but it was more traditional runs. What kind of made this past week the time that you guys decided to change to more of a traditional running scheme?
That was part of those hours and hours and hours of how do we get those two guys involved in the game and let them drop their pads and go do what they do best, and that's run the ball. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but the majority of them were direct handoffs, like you just said.
Do you think that what worked against Nebraska is sustainable going into a game like this with such a tough rush defense?
It has to be. I mean, obviously, schematically it will change because it's a completely different defense. That was a bare 0, 3-4 look, and this is going to be a 4-3 look. So it's just schematically it's different, but the mentality has to be the same.
Front row right, Austin.
Urban, to go back to what Doug was asking about that red zone package, what do you call that sort of jumbo look there, and where did this one specifically come from?
Well, Wyatt Davis is a guy that's been, you know, he's practicing. I've been mentioning his name, and you know, we got to get that guy in the game. Have to get him in the game, and we've done that before with Bowen. Do you remember in the past we put him at tight end, and other people have done that, and Wyatt Davis earned that right, and it worked.
Have you been a fan of the continued rotation with Mike Weber and J.K.? Some people say running backs need to get a rhythm, and going back and forth on the drives maybe. Is that a part of the problem for the running game in your mind, or have you been okay with how that's played out this season?
I've been okay with it. I don't micromanage that too much, but if I have to, I'll get involved in that. But I think a fresh back that goes a good series, and then the next guy gets the next series. And obviously near the end, J.K. got a couple extra series. Just he was so tight with the football. We got to make sure Mike takes care of the ball.
Front row right, Tim?
Herb, did you notice something coming out of that game and maybe yesterday? Is there a little bit more bounce in the step of your offensive line and your running backs? I mean, I would think Dahlberg is part of what you want to see coming along this late in the season. What did you just notice about them coming off a game like that?
Well, they're very healthy now. They're, Thayer is healthy. Wyatt Davis, we're getting a little bit of depth. Bowen's practicing with the team again. They had 2 excellent weeks of practice, and they were confident going to that game, and we stuck with it.
When you put in something like that, though, with like, for one, in other words, a full house backfield, do you literally have to have other things out of it? Is that part of
course.
the way you look at it?
Yeah, we did a couple things out of it. We ran the Paris play, and then we tried to throw a couple times, and I'm not sure we hit one if I remember right, but you have to do other things out of it.
Yeah. Another thing, when you say Michigan State's really coming on defensively, they had some problems really early in the year, but they've gotten them straightened out, it looks like. What just stands out about their defense more than anything else as you watch them on video?
Their front seven, they're excellent corner. Their boundary corner's excellent player, and then that frees them up to do what they do. Their defense hasn't changed that much. They're doing a little bit different things this year, but well-coached defense, tough guys, defensive front's outstanding, and their backers are outstanding.
And kind of one last thing. Brendan White, as you're sitting there watching him Saturday, was it refreshing to you to see a guy that literally stepped up into the limelight and delivered? I mean, he was making plays. He wasn't just running around. Just what did that do for you? Because y'all have had problems getting that another safety going.
Right. It was, I'm not sure the term refreshing. I'm not sure I've ever used that in my life.
Well,
But that's, those who know me know that's not
Did you
a
find
term
somebody? I guess.
refreshing.
Yeah. Did you find somebody?
It felt good for him, and then also you're right. I mean, going back to springtime, safety was not a solidified position, and we have to play much better at that spot. And then you had some injuries this week, and then obviously the targeting call, and there he is. He's in the game, and I looked out there, and you had Sean White at one safety, and Brendan White at the other.
Far left, Lori?
It seems like normally by this point of the year, we've asked you about having a state of the team address. Is that something you've done, or is that something that for some reason hasn't been an issue this year?
Yeah, we at times we'll talk about that. We're not now. We're just we're trying to first of all find out who's healthy. Second of all, emphasis on the strengths of our enhancing them, and then fixing these issues that are the glaring mistakes that we got to get right.
Is there something about this team that they are better at focusing on the little picture and ignoring that outside noise than maybe other teams?
Yeah, it's just, a lot of it has to do with just who's playing. Who's at certain positions. You got Austin Max down. You don't have who's going to go in at that spot. You have some issues on defense. We find out that Jeffrey Kuda is not going to be able to play midweek. And then it's just a different situation this year.
Front row left, Bill?
Urban, when a guy like Brendan White comes in and hasn't played really significantly on defense all year and has that kind of game, arguably the best game we've had from a safety, do you wonder why he hadn't been part of the mix earlier? I know you talk about sometimes where your position coaches handle the personnel. Do you ask yourself, well, if he's this good, how come he hadn't been in the mix, 5
No,
weeks ago?
I watch that closely, and it's a matter of practice. You have to do it. You don't just throw a guy in the game. And then if he's practicing and earns the trust of his coaches like he did Saturday, you'll see more playing time.
And how involved is that process for a young guy? Because people look at what you guys have recruited the last 2 years, 2 of the best recruiting classes you ever had, and wonder why more of those guys aren't playing. How much of an uphill climb is it for a young guy to get on the field here, and is it perhaps too difficult for a young guy to get on the field?
It shouldn't be. That's development. That's I think that's a great question. It's one that I ask quite often in staff meetings. And why is this guy not playing? Why is he not ready to play?
Second row left, Ari?
Urban, you talk about how essential it is for your assistants to be able to recruit. Just wondering, through the first few months, your assessment of the way Brian Hartline has done in that realm of his job?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm just trying to think who we have that he's, yeah, for this class, we have a handful of receiver commits, and he's doing a very good job.
Specifically, coming in and never recruiting before, this is his first time as a coach and whatnot, what's an honest assessment of how difficult the position he's been put in? To replace somebody who has been fired, to have to answer questions about uncomfortable topics, and not only that, he's gotten a few commitments. Can you maybe put yourself in his shoes as a young recruiter? I mean, how difficult would it be coming out of the gate, not only learning how to recruit, but to have to overcome some of those obstacles?
Just very, very observant. That's true. You know, he was thrust into a situation, and I think one of the great things he had some veteran group to coach, and he has you know, very good recruiters around here to see how it's been done. He's been here for a couple of years. That's a positive.
You have to assess that, though, as you move forward and decide, because he feels like he's trying to prove that he belongs on the staff for the future, almost like a tryout. I mean, how big of the assessment of whether or not you keep him next year is involved in how he's done in that realm?
Oh, he's done very good. He's done very good, and we'll address it at the right time, and he's done very good.
Front row right, Bill?
The
couple questions, folks.
the passing game has been good all year. The run game got it going. On defense, how close are you to being the kind of defense you need to be if you want to get where you want to be?
I think we're getting closer. I think we got to quit shuffling lineups, and we got to, you know, obviously, you know, even though we gave up three big plays, one was just a long pass, another was a throwback, pretty well good schemed up play, and then our longest run, other than I think a quarterback scramble, was 24 yards. The other one was 12 yards. It's getting closer, but it's nowhere near the standard we want.
And I get this question a lot, so I'll ask it. The linebackers have come under a lot of criticism. You have players who played there before, certainly a potential Dante Booker, Justin Hilliard, Baron Browning, others. Has there been any thought to personnel changes there, and why are you sticking with the guys you've stuck with?
That's constant conversation. You know, when you know, missed tackles was the alarming thing this weekend, and we'll put the best players out there that we think can help us win the game.
And final question is third row right, Tony?
Urban, we talked to Terry McLaurin last week about Chris Olave, and he said that they saw back in camp that he could play. And he mentioned that maybe the reason he hadn't played until this point is because you didn't get to see him in camp, and you needed to be shown that he was tough enough to handle being thrust out there. I'm wondering, do you feel like you were maybe slower or disadvantaged in terms of learning the new players because you didn't get to see them in August?
Sure, I think especially the freshmen, and then also the improvement of others. But Chris, it doesn't take long to see that he's a very good player. He made a great player for us on kicking game Saturday, and you can see he's got an incredible skill set, great person. The problem before Austin Mack was there was just two guys at each position, so we certainly weren't holding him back, and he's come, you know, he's earned that right to be in rotation.
Do you think that's had a sizable impact on you not being able to see the players in camp? Has that had a sizable impact on the young players maybe not getting into the game until?
I don't think so, because once again, I don't micromanage too closely. I'll have my opinions because I get to watch practice and all that, but I don't think so.
Great. Coach,
Thanks.
thank you very much.